oh my God, the Edge brings something so unusual. It doesn't.
Especially that about the Samsung S25 Galaxy. No, I said the wrong order.
But the market is kind of stagnating at the moment. Like AI isn't really shaking it up in the way that manufacturers thought they would.
Mark Zuckerberg confirmed that they are having new smart glasses launches. He specifically uses the plural later in the year.
The overall effect is lessened by turning on speech enhancement with a lot of current systems, and they don't want that.
I would love to see something that also takes heavy accents and smooths them out.
Is that just so you can understand our team calls, Lance? Welcome, everyone, to the 18th episode of the TechRadar podcast. My name is Josephine Watson, and I'm joined today by Hamish Hector.
Hello!
Lance Ulanoff.
Hi.
Matt Bolton.
Hello.
And Axel Metz.
Hello.
This week, we'll be sharing our first impressions of the new Samsung Galaxy Edge following a sneak peek preview we've had with the new thin phone ahead of its official release. We're also going to learn an exciting news story from Sonos about a new feature called AI Speech Enhancement. But first off, here's Hamish with this episode's rendition of In Case You Missed It.
Thanks, Josie. Since the last podcast, we've had some major tech teasers. Mark Zuckerberg confirmed we'll see new Meta smart glasses at Connect later this year, and my money is on us getting 3 pairs with AI and/or AR capabilities, though we should expect those AR specs to be pretty pricey. Sony also revealed its WH-1000XM6 headphones land on May 15th. Most details have already been leaked, so we should expect better audio processing and noise cancellation, as well as a slight price hike. LG Display, the part of LG that makes OLED screens, announced that it had finally ready to bring the Dream OLED upgrade to the real world. It's called Blue FOLED, and it'll be more energy efficient OLED screens even at higher brightness levels. It's coming to smaller screens first, but it'll also be the holy grail for OLED TVs. And we got a brand new trailer to showcase the story we can expect to play in Grand Theft Auto 6 when it launches, which is now set to be May 26th, 2026, provided it isn't delayed yet again. The game looks stunning from what we've seen, and what's even more impressive is all the footage from the trailer was apparently captured on a PS5. Sonos had 2 big announcements. The first is a new AI upgrade exclusively for its Sonos Arc Ultra. It was developed with the UK's leading charity for people with hearing loss, and it works by separating dialogue from other sound effects in real time and boosting just the speech while keeping everything else the same. The other isn't so exciting. Sonos and IKEA are ending their Symfonis collaboration, which combined impressive audio tech with mundane items like bookshelves, lamps, and picture frames. Existing models will continue to be supported, but no new releases are planned. Lastly, in a fun twist on last episode's topic on being kind to AI, OpenAI has announced that it's made ChatGPT a little bit less nice after its new personality accidentally made the chatbot annoyingly positive.
Excellent. I mean, annoyingly positive is not something that I can necessarily relate to. I think, you'll need a little bit more of it, but...
It would basically just like, if you said anything to it, it'd be like, oh, that's an amazing idea. You're really smart. And it would just be like overly like
The problem is that it was sycophantic.
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's giving a little bit too intense even for me. Although I do need some good energy sometimes. I feel like, working journalism especially, you end up with a lot of dealing with criticism. But regardless of that, we're going to talk about some of those stories, especially Sonos, later in the episode. But I wanted to pick up on a couple of them, especially the first one you mentioned there about new Meta smart glasses. So you've got a theory there are going to be 3. Talk us through why.
So, firstly, because it was basically from Meta's recent financial statement. You know, it's like quarterly releases. They say how well they're doing. Mark Zuckerberg gave a little bit of a statement, and he confirmed that they are having new smart glasses launches. He specifically uses the plural later in the year, some with new technological capabilities. And leaks have teased at least 2, but I think we might get a third. So the 2 that have sort of been teased by leaks are one, which is basically everyone knows is coming now, is going to be a lot like the current existing Meta Ray-Ban smart glasses, but it will have a little display in the bottom right-hand corner of one of the lenses. So that will allow you to see notifications from your phone, maybe like a little pop-up of the photo you've just taken. It'll be hopefully kind of handy, because that's something that is kind of difficult with the current glasses. Is you take a picture and then you have to sort of check your phone to see if it's okay. If you're wearing a hat, it might be in the way. Right. This way you can just see kind of all the information right in front of you. Though that's predicted to be over $1,000 based on sort of rumors. It might even be something like $1,300, $1,400 just for that screen.
How much for the current model?
The cheapest current model is $299.
Oh, okay.
So it's like significantly pricier.
Yeah.
Do we know what tech to expect for that screen? Will it be like micro LED projection onto the glass?
I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it's meant to be like some kind of little screen you can see. It'll probably involve some kind of projection because, yeah, they'll need to hide sort of everything somewhere. Then the other pair that we're probably going to get are basically the current Ray-Ban smart glasses, but with the Oakley design. So if you've sort of seen the sort of visor shape thing, because Oakley is also owned by EssilorLuxottica, which is Ray-Ban's parent company, and it's sort of that's who Meta has a partnership with. And so these Oakley glasses are apparently going to be a little bit more sporty focused.
Okay.
So I don't know, that might come with some sort of new AI features, but it seems like the camera will move from the side to sort of the bit in the middle, apparently. And then my final sort of prediction, I don't think it's been explicitly leaked, but it's been a couple of years since the previous Ray-Bans came out. Obviously, they're getting a big upgrade with the display, but, you know, I'd sort of hope maybe you could get some other upgrades. The camera's only 12 megapixels, and it's not the best at that. So there's kind of a part of me that always thinks, well, I could just whip out my phone to take pictures a lot of the time. And the audio is fine, but it could be better. So there's a part of me thinking it's maybe time for a refresh. It's like a hugely, insanely popular product.
Yeah.
If you go to most Ray-Ban stores across Europe, their most sold product are the smart glasses.
Really?
So at least it was like, there was a news story on it sometime last year. So like it's insanely popular. And so sort of some new model with better specs, hopefully around the same price, could be quite useful as well as a sort of counter to the, you can't maybe get the $1,000 one, but hey, here's a new and upgraded version that you can still enjoy.
Gotcha.
The microphone thing is interesting. I could totally see them going for some kind of like spatial audio capture, putting like a few mics around.
I think they have a bit of that already, but yeah, just like better audio for capturing your voice, better just like audio, like open ear headphone type design, because they have a bit of that at the moment, but it's like, could be better.
I mean, it's quite impressive for what it is, though. I tried them for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and I was really impressed by how clear the audio comes through from the AI assistant they've got in there.
Yeah.
Was it a Judi Dench one that someone they'd used the Judi Dench option, and that was hilarious. And but it was actually like having her in my ear, a bit spooky, uncanny, to be fair. And then Matt, as our resident TV guy, I wanted to pick up on another story that Hamish mentioned earlier about the blue OLED news.
Yes.
So if I understand correctly, that's been a bit of a problem child in OLED tech up till now.
Yeah, so the thing about OLED compared to old LCD screens is that the OLED pixels emit their own light. And the material used to do this sort of years ago was fluorescent material.
Right.
And then they started moving over to phosphorescent material because it's so much more efficient. So with fluorescent, only about 25% of the light gets out of the pixel.
Okay.
And even then it has to go through filters before it reaches you. So you're not even getting all of that 25%. Phosphorescent, essentially 100% of the light gets out of the pixel in the first place. The problem is, up until now, the companies have never been able to crack blue phosphorescent material.
Okay.
So OLED screens, like most screens, rely on mixing red, green, and blue light to make the colors that you see. We've only managed red and green with this new upgraded thing. So blue being dimmer kind of screws up the whole balance of everything you're doing.
Right.
It's just been an ongoing issue. The blue phosphorescent material breakthrough has been on the cards for a while in labs. One company saying, we've cracked it, we're speaking to all the manufacturers, just wait, it's coming soon. Nothing's happened. But now, yeah, LG Display has come out and said, right, we've got it, we've got this material, we are about to start putting it in actual screens. But at first, it will be smaller size screens. In theory, it could mean brighter OLED screens with kind of potentially richer colors. Most of us kind of think, well, my phone is perfectly bright anyway. A lot of screens we look at that are smaller, generally pretty happy with the brightness. But it also means they can be the same brightness but use less power to do it.
Right.
Because the actual material is brighter in the first place. So you can pump less power in to get the same results.
Could be good news for gaming handhelds in particular, as well as phones, right? Because
Yeah, 100%.
Switch to OLED might actually happen sooner than we think. Let's hope. Let's live in hope.
I mean, with all the gaming handhelds, you kind of feel like, right, but the screens always use a lot of power.
Yeah.
But you're like, come on, man, you play games on anything and just the battery always goes through the floor.
Yeah. Although it is, I think it's quite interesting to see how much OLED snobbery there is increasing in the gaming space.
It's a real trend over the last year,
Yeah.
kind of with the QD OLED monitors appearing that's kind of also pushed regular OLED monitors to, I think, kind of go more mainstream as well. And I've really noticed, obviously, as someone who's been covering this tech for years and years, the Reddits and kind of everywhere people is talking about them has turned so heavily towards OLED just in the space of whatever, 18 months.
Which is wild, considering I feel like 2-3 years ago, I'm not massively a screen tech person. I don't cover a lot about it. But I seem to remember everything about OLED back then was like, don't touch it because of burning. Don't touch it because of burning. And that sea change has been quite drastic. But hopefully now it will encourage even more people towards it, because it is better for energy efficiency by a long stretch, right?
It depends. Yeah, the advantage of OLED for energy efficiency in one sense is kind of, oh, well, if something is black, you've just turned off the pixels. So you're not using any power there. There's a lot of complicated stuff that goes into it. So kind of, yes, it can be, but don't buy it for that reason.
Don't let big OLED convince you with their marketing messaging,
exactly.
Which apparently they did me. Cool. And then I want to touch on GTA 6 quickly before we move on to our main topic for today, because it's been a flurry of news. It feels like it's always the case. You'd hear nothing about GTA for years and years, and then suddenly 20 news stories in a week. So bad news in that we not only have to wait longer for GTA 6, but also means we now have another year of people making the XYZ before GTA 6 jokes, and I could do without those at this point, I think. But we've seen a new trailer. Axel, you're probably our biggest GTA fan on the panel today. Why are people so hyped about the trailer? What's good about it?
Well, it was quite smart from them, to announce that it was delayed, and then everyone read the headlines, and then you go into the articles, and then it was like, but there's a new trailer, and everyone went, oh my God, I don't mind. Like everyone else, I've been waiting for GTA 6 for what, 13 years?
Yeah, I think GTA 5 came in.
But actually, it wasn't until this second trailer that I was properly excited about it.
Yeah.
The first trailer was cool, but it was very sort of GTA 5, PS4 coded, and like we'd all been waiting a long time to see anything about GTA 6. And the jump didn't seem maybe as big as it does now. Like this new trailer is such a step up in terms of graphics, character introductions, the map. I mean, Hamish, you mentioned, it was all filmed on or captured on PS5.
According to the trailer, that's what it
according
said.
to the trailer, and that bodes well at least.
And a base PS5, right?
Yeah, not
Pro.
Pro.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Which is a big deal, I think,
Yeah.
because I don't know anyone that has a Pro personally.
No.
I saw one the other day at my friend's house. Yeah, I was really
Really?
surprised. Yeah.
That is quite good.
But so if it can run as it's supposed to run in these trailers, then it'll be amazing. I don't want to open up the $100 game debate, but GTA 6 looks like a proper next-gen game, and if they were to charge $100 for that, it's sort of 50% of the way to justifying that price. I'm not trying to make them do it. Don't do it. But we haven't seen a jump like this for a long time.
Actually, don't do it, but I will.
Don't
pay.
do it.
It's fine.
And Matt, you said you'd read something earlier on Reddit about muscle physics
Yeah,
in the
I
game.
saw someone going really deep into.
No, he was reading
into
up
what's
muscle
going
physics
on
on
in
Reddit.
there. Googling muscle physics as usual. But basically, someone had picked out. It was just somewhere in the background of the shot, so I went in to try and find it. But literally, someone's arms in their muscles changing shape realistically depending on how their hand was angled.
So what muscles are being engaged in the arm depending on their positioning. Yeah.
And kind of looking at it, it is kind of crazy.
I don't know if I need hyper-realistic car accidents, but that's because that's mostly my driving skills, I guess, in the game, probably coming to play there. Anyway, let's talk about our main topic for today, which is the Samsung Galaxy S25 Edge. You two have seen it, Lance and Axel. Lance, I'm going to pass to you first because you've literally just come fresh off of your hands-on with it, right? What are your first impressions?
Ooh, so thin.
That's the review title, done.
There you go. It's a beautiful little phone. I think it felt as thin and as light as I anticipated because I had seen it from a distance a few months back at one of Samsung's events. But it presents super well. It looks like a premium phone. It feels like a premium phone. It's definitely really feels super light. Otherwise, it's funny because when you talk about this, you're not going to be talking about, oh my God, the Edge brings something so unusual. It doesn't. It's a Galaxy S25, a hybrid between the Plus and the Ultra that is super thin. And I say it's a hybrid because it has that 200 megapixel camera in it. And that's their best camera that was brought down from the S25 Ultra. So that's kind of a big deal. And, I got to try the camera out for just a little bit. I got to try the new ultra wide camera. And even the selfie camera, which, by the way, the selfie camera is, interestingly enough, now their best ultra wide selfie camera in that it has 5% more field of view, 85% instead of 80. So it's like, oh, so you get, a couple of, if you have more friends, you get more in. And maybe because you have an ultra thin phone, you have more friends. I don't know. I kept trying to compare it to things. I compared it to a stack of quarters. It looked like between 3 and 4. It's definitely, if you put it next to an S25 Ultra, it's so much thinner. Except, by the way, the camera bump. So the camera bump could not be squashed inside this body. And if you were to measure the full width at the camera bump area, you'd be at 10 millimeters. So that's almost twice the thickness right there in that area. Not that you really notice it that much. One thing that oddly impressed me more than I might have expected is the pair of cases they've made for this thing. They have one vegan leather one and one clear plastic one. But when you put a case on your phone, usually it's like whatever size it is, it always just feels bulkier. It kind of takes away the aesthetic. It's the end of it. But they made these cases so it's really kind of subtle. You don't lose too much of the thinness. You don't lose that. So it's actually a really nice job that they did. Hopefully they protect it really well. But yeah, I mean, I think it's an impressive phone. The one other thing I will add before handing it over to Axel, who probably has many, many thoughts. I was going into this a little concerned because there's no optical zoom, right? So this is a phone that's going to be over $1,000 in the US, and you've got the ultra wide and you've got the main camera, and you don't get an optical zoom lens. But because you've got a 200 megapixel sensor, they can provide a 2x zoom that is basically a sensor crop. Uh, and the thing about that to keep in mind is that is not a digital zoom, meaning it's not adding pixels that aren't there. It's taking the pixels that are available in this high quality sensor and finding a small grouping of the best of them. So then you're zoomed in on that. So I'm actually okay with that, much more so than I thought it would be. And generally, I think this is an interesting phone that'll be for a certain kind of buyer.
Interesting. We'll come back to the which buyer is it for conversation point soon, I think. But Axel, seeing as you've had hands on with it as well, anything you'd add to that? Anything different you felt about it?
I mean, only that I'm not like Lance in that I didn't go into expecting to know how it would look and feel. I think I maybe underestimated a little bit from the pictures. And I had seen it at MWC, on the stand, but it was a look but don't touch situation. And they didn't really let you put other phones up close to it to really see. So it's definitely something that I think people will have to see and hold to realize that they want. Yeah, like I say, I wasn't bothered about it until when I went to this hands-on and I took the S25 and the iPhone 16 Pro and you held it next to it. And it is like, it looks almost half as thin. It's not quite that much, but it is ridiculous. And Lance is right to call it a hybrid. I mean, it's $1,100, £1,100, which is a lot of money. But you get a better design and a better main camera than you do on the basic S25, which costs a lot less.
Yeah.
But you get shorter battery life, we think. Samsung promises all-day battery life, but it's going to be shorter because it's a slightly smaller cell and it's a much bigger phone. And obviously you lose that telephoto lens. So it's definitely a kind of unique portion of the market. But the market is kind of stagnating at the moment. Like AI isn't really shaking it up in the way that manufacturers thought they would, or consumers, they don't care about it really at the moment. And we've run some polls on TechRadar asking people what they think of smartphone design in 2025. And we did one the other day, and 1,500 people replied, and 65% just said it's boring. We want something new. And then you get something new, and people go, "Well, why would you you get worse battery life?" But that is, I think you have to take a risk as a smartphone manufacturer now. And Samsung has that existing portfolio of S25 Plus, Ultra.
Yeah.
Like they're still there. They're not going away. This is just, if you want a phone that's all about aesthetics, and that not many other people are going to have, it's cool.
Well, this is the thing. I think my question is I can totally see, and this goes back to the who is it for market. I can totally see the kind of, the aesthetic thing, the it's so beautiful and it feels like an advancement or whatever.
Yeah.
In the case of, Samsung's range in particular, I'm like, right, but doesn't the Flip or kind of meet that need as well?
Yeah.
Don't we already have a phone for those people?
That's the question I asked Victoria, who's our social media editor. She's behind the camera, that's why I'm sort of pointing over this way. And she said to me that she really loved the Galaxy Edge because it's, you know, much smaller, it's easier to hold. She said it felt like a phone designed for women.
Yes.
And then, but I sort of said, okay, but what about, because she really likes the Flip as well. I said, what if the Flip had that same 200 megapixel camera? And she said, absolutely the Flip.
Yeah.
So I think it's that, like, finding the balance between design and specs. So it'll be interesting to see sort of what happens with the 7 and Flip 7 later this year and all that.
So one of the really interesting things that I learned today is that, at least this is how they're pitching it. Samsung learned a tremendous amount from their folding phones, which informed the design of the Edge. So it's almost like if they couldn't have figured out how to squeeze as much as they squeeze into the Z Fold 6 or the Z Flip 6, they might never have been able to achieve the Edge design. And it is worth noting that, for example, the Z Fold 6 has like a 4400 milliamp hour battery. This has a 3900 milliamp battery. And there's a very simple reason for that, because they're very close. They're very similar in thickness when, if you open the fold completely up, but the fold has two sides. It basically is double the space. So what they've achieved within a single panel to get inside this phone is actually pretty notable, that they were able to do that and the 200 megapixel sensor. So they've put things in there that have been almost self-limiting for the size of the battery they could put in. But again, a lot of this, I think, comes from the learnings they got from their foldable designs.
It makes a lot of sense. And I think when we're coming to that who's it for question, yes, the Flip and the Flip in particular, I think it does feel like more of a feminine coded phone. That certainly seems to be the case in Korea, which is their main market, their home market.
We call it a Sydney Sweeney phone.
The Sydney Sweeney phone, exactly. And she has impeccable taste because it's also my favourite in their lineup. But it feels like the Edge is probably more for the Western side of the female market at this point, because these haven't taken off the way they're wanting them to. And I think I say that with the Western audience, they're not like the most popular form factor. I don't personally have lots of friends who have anything other than an iPhone, but that's because they're not massively tech enthusiasts. I think the thin phones could be that sort of gateway into non-brick phones.
I think with the camera as well. Like my friend Alex, she loves her Samsung phone. She has an Ultra, and she was sort of interested in the Z Fold 6 because I've got it. But the main turn-off for her and with the Flip is the fact that the cameras are worse.
Yes.
And to her mind, it's like, that's the thing that matters most to her. So that sort of thing that combines the slightly better design with the ultra premium main megapixel camera is sort of the one that she would want to go for. So I think that that's a very smart decision to make sure that it has that premium sensor, even if it doesn't have everything the Ultra has.
It's also, a much safer move. If you're someone who just wants to kind of shake up your smartphone experience and use something new, it's a much safer bet to go to a super thin phone, and that be the cool USP, than it is to go for a folding phone that you don't know how.
That's kind of what I mean with the Flip popularity here.
Yeah.
It's just such a big jump,
and
isn't
then
it?
also that you don't have the durability questions that you might have over a Flip as well.
Just somebody who remembers very, very clearly the 6S, the 6S Plus, those were some of the thinnest phones that Apple had ever made, and kind of launched the whole bend gate thing where people were sitting on them and torquing them. If you were to look at the design of say, an iPhone 6 compared to the Samsung Galaxy S25 Edge, what you'd notice is that there's a frame on the Edge. All modern phones now have these frames, right? The flat band that runs around the outside edge creates a rigid frame. And because on the sides of that rigid frame, the metal is vertical. So imagine trying to bend vertical metal, right? Torquing it like that. Well, you can't really, because the vertical is going to create such a rigid frame, you just can't do it. That didn't exist on the S. The S6, it was a curve. It was just a curve. So it's really physics, ultimately. I was going to add one other thing, though, because you guys were talking about the Western audience. Now, please keep in mind that Samsung, by the time people listening to this, it will have launched, but Samsung's launching this ostensibly in the middle of the night for Western audiences. They're starting at 8 o'clock in the UK. It's going to be even
Thanks,
later.
Samsung. Thank you.
Yeah, and that to me speaks to them talking maybe to someone else first thing in the morning in Korea. It's South Korea. It's like it's traditionally what we've seen is that markets outside Western markets tend to be willing to accept more radical designs, bleeding edge designs. They will go for it first before we'll adopt. Although I don't think that an ultra thin phone is necessarily that radical compared to certainly a folding phone.
We talked a lot about camera array, but we did a poll on WhatsApp, and 75% of people, as we kind of predict with this conversation, said they don't really care about thinness. But the thing people said they would be most willing to sacrifice from smartphone design out of build quality, display, performance, and battery was camera array. People care least about the camera array in terms of what they're going to make a concession on. And that was 12% of the votes. The rest were evenly split. So it's kind of interesting that that's the thing they've prioritized with this thin phone.
Yeah, and I think the thing now is that a main camera is so much more than a main camera from 5 years ago. Like Apple is quite happy to launch a 16E with a single wide camera, but it is a really good camera. And I think this has got 200 megapixel wide camera, and Lance is talking about the optical quality crop. So for most people, I think that's all they're going to need. You're not going to be able to zoom at ridiculous distances and capture buildings and things like that. But I don't know, for me, as someone who's not a super, I take a lot of pictures.
Yeah.
But not like super close up macro, all of this stuff. So I think for most people, that is something they would be willing to sacrifice.
Yeah, there is an element of when you're interacting with the camera, you are not interacting with 3 lenses or 2 lenses or 1 lens. You're interacting with an app.
Yes.
And you're just tapping a button that says zoom in a bit more or not. And ultimately, you only care if the picture you get is the picture you wanted.
I think sometimes people don't even know what camera they're using. Like you say, they just tap 2 or 3 and they're not aware that it's switching lenses sometimes.
Well, yeah, they're just doing, they see it as a continuum, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They see that they just like sliding back and forth until they're where they want to be, till they have the frame they want. Sometimes the phone will tell you that you're changing lenses because you'll have that jar, like that moment of it kind of skipping almost because it's switching lenses. And Samsung was saying something about that people stay within 0.6, 1, and 2 is they're basically, those are the cameras they use anyway. They're not constantly zooming in on things. And you can, with the Samsung Galaxy S25 Edge, you can still zoom to 10x, but it's digital. And generally, I recommend people don't use digital zoom because you don't know how much has been added by machine learning or AI. But yeah, I kind of agree with that. Even just going back to something that Hamish was saying kind of early on, I was thinking about all the smart glasses that people are wearing and taking pictures with, and the fact that they don't care that half the time they're not even sure how they're framing a photo. They just care about capturing the moment.
Yeah, it's interesting though. I wish they would stop doing it at gigs because I'm getting very tired of just seeing a sea of phones. That's the one thing I'm most excited for from smart glasses.
Yeah, I recorded a gig with one that was really good.
Yeah, doing it through glasses absolutely fine.
How are you seeing the gig? It's too dark.
I'm wearing the glasses.
No, they're sunglasses.
They're just
Oh,
glasses.
sorry. I don't think I've only ever seen the sunglass one.
No,
I
these
see.
are transition
Just
lenses.
imagine you in a sea of people in sunglasses.
No,
Can't see anything.
These are
Don't worry, I'll
transitions.
watch it later. I'll watch it.
yeah, no, it was clear. It was clear at the time.
Or you just wear them on your head and then just tilt
Yeah,
your head
true.
down like that for the entire concert. No, I think it's interesting with the Edge. We'll see how things go. Do we have an official release date? No, we don't. We talked about this.
Lance, I think you May 20th.
May 30th. So pre-orders are going on as of today, and then I guess the ship is full availability is May 30th, which is an important day in history.
Why is that?
It's my birthday.
Oh, Lance is getting a Galaxy Edge for his birthday. How lovely. We'll make sure to check out techradar.com close to the time of release for the full review of the Samsung Galaxy S25 Edge. So many words in names. I say it every time. I'm fed up with it.
They didn't put the Galaxy Edge next to each other. They sort of split up with the S25.
Yeah,
Like
it is-
Galaxy
'cause
Edge
they're-
is a fun name.
Now they can do S26 Edge.
I was going to say,
But they can
there'll
put
be another
Galaxy
one.
Edge S25.
That sounds terrible, Hamish. That sounds so bad.
You maniac.
Samsung S25. No, it has to be the way it is. I hate that.
Galaxy Edge 25.
I agree with you though, especially with the Z Fold, Z Flip, it's all too much. I can't remember them all now.
I think with Sony doing what Sony
Sony's,
does,
yeah,
Samsung
yeah,
do whatever
yeah.
they want.
For
Yeah.
American audiences, Z means Z.
Oh yeah, that's true. Z Flip and Z Fold. No, we'll see how it goes, but do check out techradar.com for all of our content, and we'll also have some more YouTube videos. We've got a hands-on video coming up already by the time you see this, so check that out too. And next, I wanted to move on to the Sonos story. So Matt, you've spoken with Sonos about this new development, the AI Speech Enhanced mode. First of all, can you talk about what it is and how it differs from what the original speech enhancement feature they have on their other devices?
Yes. So on the Sonos soundbars at the moment, you have a speech enhancement feature, and it kind of does what most speech enhancement features do, which is boost kind of the mid-range frequencies where most speech tends to kind of occur in the soundscape. And in order to make that more prominent, it kind of clamps down on the bass and treble to a certain degree, which means you are getting a less dynamic sound from the movie you're watching, the TV show you're watching, or whatever. And that will kind of reduce the power of kind of surround sound effects and just the general impact and the immersiveness of what you're watching. So we're starting to see a lot of kind of AI sound modes coming, including AI-based speech enhancement. This is the first time Sonos has ever done any kind of AI sound processing mode of any kind. Basically, it's a new speech enhancement mode that on the Sonos Arc Ultra will replace the current speech enhancement options. It's only on the Sonos Arc Ultra because that is the only soundbar they've made that has enough computing power to do it.
Right.
I imagine in the future they will launch replacements for the other soundbars with the new CPU that will follow up. But basically the point is it is now able to analyze the movie or TV sound in real time as it comes in, separate the speech out from the rest of the sound.
Amazing.
And then enhance, make more prominent just the parts that have the speech in, and leave the bass, leave the treble, leave everything else more or less untouched. So you still get just as immersive surround sound or Dolby Atmos effects or whatever it may be, but the speech is clearer. So Sonos has been developing this for 4 years.
Oh, wow.
And for the last year has been working with the Royal National Institute for Deaf People, which is the UK's leading charity for people with hearing loss, has been working with them to make sure that the new options are as good as possible for enhancing, speech in particular out of busy sound mixes. So in particular, Sonos has really tried to focus on kind of two people speaking in a bar where there's lots of speech around you, or a war movie where someone is saying something while there are shells exploding around them, or just sounds from certain directors who will not be named, where the soundtrack, the movie score is really loud and the speech isn't necessarily that loud. It analyzes all of this in real time. It does not make any adjustments where it's just dialogue and there's no background sound. That's not necessary.
Yeah.
It is constantly analyzing to go, okay, I can detect that this speech is going to be drowned out by other stuff that's going on. I need to ramp up what I'm doing quite significantly, or it can find a middle ground. Sonos kind of showed me this kind of bell curve of how it works, because ultimately you might get to a point where there's just music and no speech. And again, it's like, well, I don't need to interfere with that. There's no speech. I don't need to be involved. Working with the RNID, the whole point was to get this other perspective on, how we hear sounds from lots of different people with different kinds of hearing loss and different levels of hearing loss, and not just saying kind of, oh, we'll do, what works for people who have fairly standard hearing but who just want to hear dialogue more clearly. We'll work with, a lot of people with other hearing difficulties, other kinds of hearing loss. The RNID said this was the first time they've ever been brought in to help develop a feature like this from the start, or effectively from the start, rather than kind of coming in at the end and not really being able to contribute.
Right.
So, Sonos was going to lots of listening sessions with people with various kinds of hearing loss and learning tons more about it, or learning new ways to approach than they had originally planned to include. So we've ended up with 4 different modes for the new AI speech enhancement tool, with off as the 5th mode, if you like. And that kind of, they were planning for 3, and then they realized that wasn't going to be sufficient. They needed 4, and they could tinker around with what level you get from those 4. So I've heard them all in action. The bottom 2 are just kind of what someone like me might use, where I don't have, any mild or moderate hearing loss. I would just kind of go okay, maybe I'm having trouble picking out this old TV show that is, the sound hasn't been maintained very well. It's a little hard to hear these days. I'll just put it on low. Everything will just become a little clearer. But I can, my subwoofer is still being used properly. Right. Everything is still nice and clear. When you get to kind of high and max, you can hear that you're starting to get some artificiality in the speech. You can hear that some processing is going on,
Right.
but it still like sounds clear, and the voices are really prominently lifted out of the mix. But like I say, you've still got that kind of impactful movie sound that you're supposed to have.
Amazing. I mean, godsend in my house because my mum always has subtitles on. I don't think she's particularly hard of hearing, but I think just music in the background of things just freaks her brain out a little bit.
Sure.
So, and it is very impressive they're not making this an accessibility feature, but it is a standard feature because hearing is a spectrum, I guess, in that sense.
Yeah, this is just the mode. It's right there on the Now Playing screen if you go into the Sonos app when you're watching TV. And it's just, and again, it's not labeled as high is for people who are hard of hearing. It's just low, medium, high, and max. Medium is pulled out as probably best for most people.
Nice.
It's actually specifically called out in there. Although most people will not use it.
Yeah.
But still, medium is kind of like I said, I think that's the highest most people want to go. Up beyond that, you will start to hear like, oh, something is being done to the sound.
Right.
It does start to feel like it's processed at that point. But like I say, low and medium, I was impressed at how naturally it all still comes across despite a new high level of processing going on.
I would really love to try this because most of the time I watch TV like this.
Have you just got one ear that's hard of hearing?
First of all, at a certain age, I think your hearing does get a little bit worse, and I'm considerably older than all of you. But it's coincided, so me getting into late middle age with television sound getting worse, mixing of TV and movies getting worse. Every streaming platform handles their audio mix differently. And so there's no consistency, and sometimes you're blasting it or you're lowering it, and the most important part of everything is the dialogue, and it's 9 times out of 10 it's the hardest thing to hear. I would love to see something that also takes heavy accents and smooths them out.
Is that just so you can understand our team calls, Lance?
Yeah. You have no idea what it was like for me when I first started this job, and I couldn't understand anything anyone was saying. I literally put captions on. But, I'm not even lying. But I think that something like this is just so necessary. I'm really kind of excited to see what it's like in practice.
The way Lance talks, it sounds like he thought we were all just talking like Dick Van Dyke from Mary Poppins all the time, just like thick Cockney accent. It's like, what the heck are you guys talking?
Do you know what, Hamish, when you do in case you missed it, I have in my head Monty Python, a newscast. It literally sounds to me like that. You have just no idea what it's like for people in the U.S. listening to it, because every accent is, of course, different. But that's just part of a hearing problem, I guess.
Excellent.
So a couple of the things Lance said. So one is, and I'm not going to blow up Lance's age spot at all, but 50% of people over 50 have some kind of hearing loss. So there is just just giving an option that is, you're not labeling it as the over 50s option, but you're kind of going like, look, most people would benefit from just going higher than nothing. These modes now, anyone who has enjoyed having a good, powerful sound system is going to immediately recognize that the overall effect is lessened by turning on speech enhancement with a lot of current systems. And they don't want that. And that is something actually the RNID kind of brought to the table of like, there are people with professionally diagnosed moderate hearing loss who are like, I'll put subtitles on and put up with not being able to hear the dialogue properly because I still want to hear everything else.
Yeah.
And I don't want to have to sacrifice that in order to hear the dialogue. And then the other thing Lance mentioned is about kind of it being, or at least feeling like kind of dialogue in movies is getting worse. And so Sonos worked with recording mixers, as it usually does, but on identifying these kind of 15 different categories of reasons people struggle to hear dialogue in movies.
Oh, okay. And
it comes from so many, some of them are to do with the mixing. And they can range from the wrong version was uploaded to Netflix. A cinema mix is different to a home theater mix.
Brutal.
It can range through to there was a mistake in the mixing. It can range through to, there's a problem with your particular speaker setup, especially if you're using the speakers built into your TV. Because unless you have a very high-end TV, they are probably small speakers firing downwards to try and reflect sound to you. And obviously that's adding kind of chaos to the frequencies. There's just this huge range of places where it can be going wrong.
Yeah.
And obviously the soundbar can't affect all of that, but you can kind of go, right, but at least if we separate out the speech, then we can just target that directly and not be screwing around with everything else so much.
It's really interesting. It's a funny one for me. I've just started looking more into sort of AI sound isolation technology because I'm getting into birding, and I've got an app that can actually separate bird song from each other. I was helping it to use Victoria, our social media editor, identify a bird
Lance
that's sailing
is so
outside.
excited about this.
It's a really good app, Lance. We'll talk after the pod. It's able to differentiate different bird song from each other and isolate the one that you're trying to find when you give it the sample, and then sort of lift that out from the others. And it's really fascinating from the bird perspective, because they're feeding it just what those birds sound like and it's lifting them out. From audio perspective, when they've done this training, how have they trained it just on general spoken word? Have they trained it based on film and TV?
No, so they decided not to train it on real film and TV for the copyright reasons.
Logical, yeah.
That's a big kind of open question mark, and they just decided not to do it that way to avoid the problem. They said, I asked them about this, and they said it would have been easier if they could have just trained it on thousands of hours of real movies and real TV. However, in the end, because what that meant they had to do is, partly they used some open sound data,
right,
and partly they went to, again, actual like movie mixing and recording studios and the people behind them, and got them to speak to them about actually how they mix things and how things are done and the process that goes into it. And then B, get them to provide like custom samples designed to help them train. And that all went into how they were training the AI and how they wanted to approach the whole system of like, they learned a lot about what goes into mixing, that they were then able to go, oh, okay, we can actually like skip some steps if we know what's gone in. So by having to create custom sounds to train the AI on, they were able to do some shortcuts in how it eventually needed to work that they didn't need to rely on the AI training to do. They could just create a kind of better system as a whole.
That's really interesting. And now, Lance, we were talking beforehand, there's some Netflix news that's happened. Can you walk us through a little bit about what the latest is?
Sure. Netflix is doing its biggest homepage redesign probably ever, refashioning the screen. Big acknowledgement that it's not just about streaming movies and TV shows anymore. In particular, it's about live events and it's about gaming, and so they're trying to acknowledge that, especially to be able to show you how live events are happening right now, and you could sort of pop in and see something on the title screen that would let you know what's going on at that moment. And they're updating the way glanceability gets better, so titles have the information about something won an award, or that it's the top in movies or TVs right now, and you don't have to like look somewhere else. It's going to be kind of right there on the screen. And then they've added generative AI, so you can talk to Netflix the way you would talk to a friend about trying to find your next big binging or streaming binge. That's happening. And then finally, vertical video on the app. So when you're scrolling and looking for stuff, you're kind of doing the vertical video scroll, but it's not fresh content. It's just literally like the trailers and bits and pieces of the TV that you can kind of go through, but it's just a more natural thing for you to do on your phone. So all of that is happening, and it's rolling out to everybody globally as we speak.
I thought the generative AI search was really cool, like the chatbot style search, because I sort of saw a bit about that, and you could sort of just say, oh yeah, I want like kind of a fun movie that's funny but not ha-ha funny, maybe like scary but not too scary, and then you could literally submit that prompt to it, and then it would hopefully spit you out films that kind of fit that brief. So
that bit I'm fine with.
Handy.
The TikTokification of the feed, I'm not sure how I feel about that. I
And
think
that it'll be really popular as well.
Oh yeah, I do, and that's the brain rotification of everything.
Not ever watch any be on Netflix.
I mean, that's basically my experience of Netflix now, though. It's just the infinite scrolling.
True.
I don't know.
What's weird to me is I feel like there was a point in time where the Netflix homepage was kind of like this already, and then it just progressively got worse and worse as the library got bigger. And there just became more and more carousels on the homepage. But I feel like there was a time where you got like the really nice hero statement at the top with all the info you need about something.
Maybe, but I think they're kind of combining things. They're even moving around some elements like your where searches and where your lists are. Sort of, I think they're trying to centralize everything, organize it, maybe even simplify it a little bit. Basically any online service that grows to a certain level has that moment where they have to figure out how to manage a mass of stuff. I mean, I think back to Amazon when it was just books, and then they just kept adding categories, and then it was a billion tabs. Like they just didn't know what to do until they finally figured out a path forward to manage all of this stuff. And I think that's where Netflix is at right now. And it's going to be really interesting to see how people feel about when you move their cheese, because when people know how things work and then you shift things around, sometimes they freak out.
The problem probably for Netflix is I don't know. With these things, you get too big. There is no solution because you are trying to put, if you're trying to put live events and movies and TV and games all into one homepage, the problem is these are 4 separate services.
Well, I just don't get the Netflix games thing. They've got some good ones on there. The Black Mirror one they did, stroke of genius. Like love that for them. But
Although that's got removed today when we're recording it, which is a couple of days ago. They've removed all the interactive games.
Why?
In favour of real games.
Oh, rubbish. Oh, that was quite a fun one. I like that one.
Well.
But I don't think I've actually met anyone who has said like, oh yeah, I found that app through Netflix. I play that game through Netflix.
They must exist.
They must exist.
I mean, real gamers.
I do, and they don't seem to be a particularly big fan of it either.
No, I don't think that's who it's aimed at when you look at the type of games on there.
I see what you mean.
Right. It's casual. It's like the mobile gamer, right? It's casual gaming that I think they want to try and own a piece of that. But quite honestly, this change has a lot more to do with the live experiences, which as you've seen, tens of millions of people do log in simultaneously to watch this stuff, and that's a whole other can of worms, because it's not just a site design that can manage it. It's a system that can handle the crush of it. And I think that's one of their really, really big focuses going forward.
I always think back to the Love is Blind finale wrap up they tried to do on the live service, and it was just chaos. It did not work from start to finish. So it's good they're investing in it, because it hasn't worked out very well for them at times. But we'll see how the receipt is among the.
I think there was a boxing match as well that famously was really difficult to
watch.
watch.
Tyson and Paul.
Yeah, there was a big deal. A lot of people tuned in to watch it. It just terrible stream.
And I read
it was a lot of this.
I read because now they have WWE.
Yes.
I think the WrestleMania numbers were not as high as WrestleMania's numbers on other platforms. So again, like adding prominence to this live thing might be just kind of, oh no, are we not surfacing this enough? We have this thing that was popular before. Like, is it just a discovery problem?
Because they've also said the thing that all of these app updates always have for streaming services, like, oh, and the AI is going to get smarter at knowing what you want to watch. Which is the promise that happens every time, and I don't feel like it's any different any time.
It's a funny one, and the promotion side of things, I hope it does help, because there are some, like there was an anime that came out recently called Moonrise, and it just did not get surfaced to anyone. It's a Netflix original anime, and it just nobody could find it. It's really good. And so I'm hoping it fixes that for some of the shows which for some reason or another just don't seem to get prominence. But I think, like you say, Matt, it might just end up being that all of us get WWE plastered in our faces for the foreseeable future. So we'll see how that goes. Well, that is all we have time for in this week's episode. It's been a delight to have the team on, as always. Thank you, Axel, Matt, Hamish and Lance, for joining us. Make sure to check out the YouTube channel for all of our upcoming content, especially that about the Samsung S25 Galaxy. No, I said the wrong order.
Hamish, keep that in.
The Samsung Galaxy S25 Edge hands-on will be live already as you are watching this, and we'll have plenty more content to come in the coming weeks. Check out techradar.com for all of our written reviews and the latest news, how-tos, and more. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!
Bye.
Bye.